What generates the illusion of looking outwardly for the answers to the questions of life, which are always found within? What generates this illusion, where the individual looks outwardly for that which they already know? It is conditioning in mind, or we can say a particular conditioning or particular condition in mind that suggests that all answers are not available within now. The condition suggests that all answers are not available within now. I trust you've had this experience where you ask the question within. Ask and ye shall receive. You ask the question within, and immediately the answer is revealed via intuition, an idea, a vision that flashes upon the mind's eye. Or it appears right in front of your face in the conversation you're having with the person right now. The answer reveals itself. To have this experience, or the frequency of this experience, happen more often, I recommend dissolving this condition. This is what I would like to discuss with you today. To do so, I titled today's conversation mind map, You Are That Infinite Intelligence. You are that infinite intelligence. Now, in the Good News translations of Colossians 3:9-10, it states, Do not lie to one another, for you have put off the old self with its habits and have put on the new self. This is the new being which God, its creator, is constantly renewing in his own image in order to bring you to a full knowledge of himself. That's what I mean by you are that infinite intelligence. Now, to articulate this point, I have on my screen a modified version of the Robert Dilts logical levels. This is a powerful model that's used in transformation arts, neurolinguistic programming, and I found this to be very helpful to articulate the various things that we discuss on this channel. Now, I modified it by putting this I on the top here. This is you, the pure awareness, the light of pure awareness, the pure consciousness is the new self, or the real self. I like to say the real self. I also created a program. If you're interested in that, it's part of my school community. I'll link in the description to it. It is on the real self-knowledge. The real self-knowledge. The real self-knowledge that is not taught in schools for whatever the reason may be. I call the program the Self-Fulfilling Self-Study. The Self-Fulfilling Self-Study. So that is you here, which is called in the Bible the new self, or the new man, not the old man. What is the old man, or the former self? The former self identifies with habits, in the Robert Dilts logical levels, behaviors that do not represent truth. Or another way of saying it is, does not represent who they naturally are. Why does the old man, or the individual identified with old man conditioning, the former self conditioning, identify with habits or behaviors that are not natural to who they truly are? Well, perhaps they look around to see what other people are doing, and they think that by mimicking those behaviors, by copying them, even if it does not feel right, even if it does not align with who they truly are, with what they know in their heart. They think that by identifying with these behaviors or habits, they can get what they want in life. Now, no shame, no condemnation. That is what I did in the earlier stages. And then when I came across this information, I realized that I was identified with these conditions. I didn't know prior to this information. In all earnestness, I didn't know I was identified with this conditioning of looking outwardly. I thought I didn't know. Now, interestingly, every now and then, I would listen to myself and trust myself. For example, when I was growing up, this was back in 1995, 1996, I was a teenager. And during that time, I got interested in computers. That movie Hackers came out, and I got so into the movie and into computers, and I thought that was really cool. They were going around hacking systems. A bunch of my friends got into it as well. And during that time, we would find local hacking communities, etc. And I remember one time when I was in high school, I figured out how to access files when the students were saving it on the server, files, so I could see their homework. And one time, there was a student who saw it, and then she somehow figured it out, put two and two together, that I was accessing these files and that I was causing these network errors so we wouldn't have to do work in class. And the network administrator would come in and she told them. Now, the teacher didn't actually shame and condemn me. The teacher actually was a great teacher. He sat down with me and said, "Hey, you've got a lot of talent in this area. You know what you're doing in this area." And that's when I had the realization that I was onto something. Not specifically the hacking, but I was interested in how networks work, how computers work. And around that time, I was taking apart the computers. I was my own computer at home. I would reinstall the operating system, software, games. And then when I would go to my friend's house or family's house, they would ask me to remove viruses. They would ask me to install printers, stuff like that. And at times they would pay me to do it. My friends' parents would pay me to fix their computers. And I thought, why would anyone pay for this? This is playing around with computers. Now, interestingly, around that time, what happened was people around me were saying things like, "Why are you always playing with computers? Why don't you focus on school? Why don't you focus on this career path or that career path?" Because whatever career path that they mentioned was where the money is. Now, this is 1995, 1996, prior to the 2000 dot-com era and the kind of way we relate with technology now, where it's so integrated with everything that we do. And so during that time, there was a lot of people that thought of computers around me as just playing with computers. They never saw it as a career path. Yet I listened to my heart and intuition. I knew something was going to come out of it. Now, a number of years later, I used to work in this warehouse job, and then I saw a promotion for client support analyst in the lunchroom. And I said to myself, people are actually going to pay people to fix computers, to answer help desk calls, to remove viruses, and all these kinds of things that it said on the job description. And I was thinking, this is just amazing. How could I do that? I'm going to apply for it. So long story short, I didn't end up getting that job, but I ended up getting another job, which was an entry-level position. And I started working there. So what ended up happening was I ended up moving up in my corporate career. And then in 2009, I transitioned and I started an IT business, which I built a success. And then after that, 2013, I started this YouTube channel, got into consulting, etc., etc. So what I have found is that By really thinking for yourself, by listening to yourself and trusting yourself, you find a way that may be different than what people are doing, yet you honor your way, which is your best way. And then some way, somehow, Steve Jobs mentioned in his commencement speech, I used to listen to it over and over again when I was building my IT business. He said, if you connect the dots looking backwards, you see how it all worked out. And it did. Now, what I have found is that is just part of the real self shining forth. That is just part of it. I always say, as we drop the conditions, what happens is the real self, here you are, shines forth in some shape or form. That is what it's meant in Colossians 3:9 and 10, more specifically 3:10. This is the new being which God, its creator, is constantly renewing in his own image. So not only do you realize that you are that pure awareness, you also realize that the pure awareness, light, or the light of pure awareness, is pure consciousness, bliss, happiness, joy, fulfillment. And this is why I always say desire points to fulfillment. I had a desire to, let's say, play with computers, work on computers, and even do some of these things unknowingly as a form of creative expression. Like, for example, in my classroom, I didn't see it as a problem, actually. Now, I didn't go down the pathway of maybe some of my friends did and getting involved with other things, but I noticed that following my heart and intuition, people showed up, like the teacher showed up. The answer revealed itself. We could say he contributed by reflecting the answer. So I knew the answer. Follow your heart and intuition. He shows up, nudges the way, end up in my corporate career, etc., etc. And you and I are different. Every single person that I speak with has a story like this. Maybe over the course, if you tell the story a lot, then it sounds like a very compelling story because you're able to communicate it in a way that sounds very interesting. For example, I watch a lot of videos, and I've been doing this for years. Nowadays, I'm watching them a lot more. They're popping up on my algorithm, on my feed on YouTube, and they're videos of entrepreneurs building businesses in all kinds of industries. Offline industries, ice cream parlors. There was this one video that popped up. It was about an owner of a business called Insomnia Cookies. And there was another video of a woman who started a business where she's embroidering sweaters or t-shirts. Now, I can tell that they're doing what they love to do. They absolutely do what they love to do. And when they share their stories can appear very nonlinear. They appear to have particular kinds of challenges which are distinct to them. Like I had particular kind of challenges along the way, which I've shared throughout the years on this channel. And those challenges are not problems. They're actually opportunities, because what I found is that when you do what you love to do, that's another thing Steve Jobs said in the commencement speech, do what you love to do, follow your heart and intuition, everything else is secondary. These challenges don't seem overwhelming on the surface, or they feel less overwhelming, or even if they do feel overwhelming, you find a way to transmute it because you love what you do. You do what you love. So that is the renewing that happens. In Romans 12:2, we discussed this in Thursday's video. If you haven't seen it, I'll link in the description to it. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So by not conforming to the pattern of this world, it means do not identify with conditioning in relation to what people say, what people don't say, in what people do, in what people don't do, in a way that denies who you are. It means be as you are. As it also says, then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, perfect, and pleasing will. Because God does everything. God brings the opportunities, God brings the people, God rearranges everything. God does everything. As it states here, in Colossians, constantly renewing in his own image. So, just as you are created in the exact image of the Creator, you are that infinite intelligence. You know the way. I like how Neville Goddard said it in his book, At Your Command. He said, "You are told, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be added unto you." He says, get first the consciousness of the things that you are seeking and leave the things alone. This is what I meant by, ye shall decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. One of my favorite passages. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. Job 22:28. So, thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. Here you are, the light of pure awareness. You are that pure awareness. You have a vision. The desire of the heart emerges. You have a vision. You have a vision. That means you are that which you imagine yourself to be. That is what it's meant by, thou shalt decree a thing. I am that. Decree can also be translated into decide. I am that. I decide I am that. I know in my heart I am that. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. The light shall shine upon thy ways. So, light is an interesting word. I like the word light. Consider, you are that light of pure awareness. That light of pure awareness, that pure consciousness is infinitely intelligent. We draw from, here's another way of saying it, from nowhere. The information is available now. You draw from the source intelligence that is available now. That is the light of pure awareness. The light is pure consciousness, as stated in Genesis 1:3, and God said, the light shall be, and the light was. That's the Peshitta Aramaic Bible translation, one of my favorite translations of Genesis 1:3. The light shall be, and the light was. Now, light does not fight. It does not ignore or try to pretend that darkness is not there. The light just is. Shadows vanish by its presence alone. What are these shadows? Illusions of mind, the conditioning in mind. As mentioned earlier, an individual may have placed conditions in mind, and then it plays out unknowingly. They place these conditions in mind, and it plays out as shadows of resistance or appearances appearing to hold them back, but they don't actually hold them back. It just seems that way to the individual who thinks from the premise of those conditions. So we no longer identify with those conditions. You just remain as you are, and the real self shines forth. This is why I say real self-confidence, real self-charisma, real self-magnetism just appears more so. You can do nothing for that to emanate more so as what we can describe as real self-confidence, real self-charisma, real self-magnetism. Again, I discussed this in my new program as part of my school community, the self-fulfilling self-study. If you're interested in that, I'll link in the description to it. So, here you are on the top, the light of pure awareness, that pure consciousness bliss. Not two things, the same thing. The light of pure awareness, that consciousness bliss, the pure awareness witnessing the consciousness bliss, or consciousness intelligence, happiness, joy, peace, real nature. It shines forth as what you imagine it to be, and the way it shines forth, as it says here, the light shall shine upon thy ways, is what I call flow. And why I say flow, as it is the way. The way of life is flow. The Tao in Taoism is the way, the flow, the natural way of life. That is God in action, doing everything. Through the individual, playing all roles in perfect harmony, people, environment, circumstance, information, everything appears to be in harmony with you. Now, this personal identity appears to transform. That is what is constantly renewing, constantly renewing. This identity here is constantly renewing to higher degrees of reflection of you. You are that pure awareness, light of consciousness pushed out as all these things appearing to reflect more of who you are. And why does this personal identity here appear in this model, we can say? Conceptually. We're just conceptualizing it so that we can have a little bit of peace of mind if we like it. So we can say, oh, there's progress being made. This identity is evolving. This identity is shifting. This identity is transforming. Well, of course it is transforming. Of course it is shifting. Of course it is renewing. God does it. It is, as stated in Colossians 9:10, this is the new being which God, its creator, is constantly renewing. Constantly renewing. It's never ending. You realize more and more so each day. Practically speaking, with all purpose and intention of this video today, titled, You Are That Infinite Intelligence, it appears as you know the way. You listen to yourself, you trust yourself, answers reveal themselves immediately in front of you, synchronicities, everything flows. And all these areas appear to transform. God does it. Personal identity, values and beliefs, capabilities, behaviors, and environments. Capabilities, skill cultivation. Behaviors, today you do something, it feels stress-based, force-based, it's a habit that does not represent you. Tomorrow, all of a sudden, you're involved with another habit. So I speak sometimes about how I have a morning routine, and that could sound like a force-based thing to do. Does a person have to have a morning routine? The answer is depends. You go within, you get the answer, and then you know. For me, it appears as a morning routine. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, warm up, stretching routine, drive to the gym, work out, go for a run, meditation, breakfast, etc. And a person might say, Joseph, you're very disciplined. I can honestly say it does not feel like discipline, as in stress and force-based. Yet you can call it that if you'd like. You can say the identity of Joseph is one of self-discipline. Yet I can honestly say that's what I genuinely love to do. I genuinely love to do it, so I do it. Now, another person might not do it. They might wake up, do a couple things, and start working. Perfectly fine. Person may say, no, you need to have a morning routine. The answer is depends. The answer is depends. Or modified version or whatever. Why is it that you have it, Joseph? Because that's my natural style. The real self shines forth as all these things. The fragrance of being, the confidence, the magnetism, the charisma, and not only that, the accessories of being. The accessories of being. What you wear, what car you drive, what car you don't drive, if you don't drive a car, where you live, etc., happens by grace and grace alone. All these things added. All these things added. Behaviors as well. All these things added. You behave in a way that is a reflection of the constant renewing of the image that you have of yourself. So another way of saying it is, you have a vision or a definite chief aim, you manifest it in form, then you have another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. It never ends. Sometimes I get asked the question, do you need to have a definite chief aim? I know individuals that live wonderful lives. That is the real self shining forth. And they don't even know about this concept of definite chief aim or setting an intention or Robert Dilts logical levels. They don't know none of this stuff. Now, what's interesting is if I talk to them about it, they'll say, you have a great way of conceptualizing it. You have a great way of putting it into models to explain it. And I say, that's what I like to do. You know, in my tech business, that's what we did. We created models, infrastructure. We had ways of articulating it with our clients. That's what I learned in my corporate IT as well, is we take technology, which might not make any sense to people. We have conversations with people, the clients, the internal members of the organization, and we translated it. We would translate it in a way they would apply it without resistance. So we could say they would see technology as their friend, not as their enemy. And why they would see it as enemy, no shame, no condemnation, is because sometimes what happens is a person, based on condition, may unknowingly assign the label or condition of enemy because they're afraid of the unknown. So rather than telling them, you need to stop that, drop that condition, We communicate in a way where they drop that condition. Just through conversation, they drop that condition and everything works out. So the real self shines forth. There you are. The real self shines forth. You have a vision. The vision represents the desire of the heart. That's why I always say desire means having. Desire points to fulfillment. The vision is a symbol of your fulfillment. It is self-fulfilling prophecy. We can say it that way. Self-fulfilling prophecy. The vision is a prophecy. Values and beliefs transform. Today I believe this. Tomorrow I don't believe that. Why? Is it better to believe this? Is it better to believe that? Again, the answer is depends. All this stuff transforms. There is little to no confusion when you realize that God does everything. And all we do is just surrender the illusion that belongs to the old man who tries to control things. As mentioned, the old man or the former self tries to control things. Interestingly, right? The former self tries to control things, does all these things to try to control things, yet the real self or the new self just shines forth. No need to control. Surrendered completely. Another way of saying it is you are that pure awareness, witnessing all these things to appear in perfect harmony, more and more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis. Now, capabilities, skills, also are cultivated in flow. What I mean by that is very soon it's going to start snowboarding season. It's already got snow on the top of the mountains. I'm looking at it right now because it's a higher altitude. They have snow up there. But over the next maybe week or so, I'm not in a rush for it, but over the next week or so, maybe next month, I'll be snowboarding. I learned how to snowboard 5 years ago. All I did was show up and have a wonderful time. Maybe I'd have a few nuances to practice during that session. Then at the end of the day, I would watch snowboarding videos on YouTube, and they would provide me optimization ideas, points in relation to my optimization data that I found. Okay, I caught an edge and wiped out. What is that? Why did that happen? I didn't know it was called catching an edge. Now I know what to do about it so I don't catch an edge. Or whatever. What happens is information naturally emerges to be in harmony and in contribution with your vision. Desire means having. You know you're that. So there's no worry about when is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? There's no wanting, needing, waiting, craving, suffering, none of that. I show up. I have a wonderful time. Again, and again. A while back, I used to rent Airbnbs up here, and I used to go in the morning and evening. Once in a while, I used to drive up here, stay 3-4 days. When I was living downtown Toronto, rent hotels around the area, go morning and evening. Now I bought a place up here, so I can be close by, so I can go morning and evening. But there's no rush, there's no stress. I just have a wonderful time, again, and again. The skill gets cultivated. Everything happens by grace and grace alone. Happens naturally, effortlessly. Because that's part of my fulfillment. Now, you might not snowboard. It's not, again, to say you need to look around and say, Joseph is snowboarding, therefore I got to start snowboarding. You just do what you love to do. Your way is the best way. Your style of life is your best style. And I'm a fan of, I used to read 4-Hour Workweek back in the days. He had this term, lifestyle design, or people used to talk about it back in the days, and maybe people still talk about it now, lifestyle design. The way I recommend relating to it is your style is the best style. Your lifestyle is the best style. It doesn't mean you have to copy somebody else's style. Definitely, if you see their style, you may be inspired by their style, because what does their style represent? Their confidence, their charisma, their personal magnetism, the accessories of being, how they dress, what they do, where they live, their behaviors, etc. They're just being who they are. The real self is shining forth. God does it. What happens is, like with a lot of sports or any hobbies, you end up performing in a way where once you would have thought it was a far stretch. For example, I had no idea I was going to be making videos on YouTube to this degree where the channel has over 400,000 subscribers. I had no idea that I would be coaching, consulting, and doing these things that I love to do to such a scale that I would write a book. Yet it emerged step by step by step. I just did the thing that felt right, and then what happened is I realized upon connecting dots looking backwards that it is exactly what Colossians 3:9-10 says. So as mentioned, the light shall shine upon thy ways. Job 22:28. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. And the light shall shine upon thy ways. Decree can also be translated into decide. Someone might say, you're really good at deciding. It's a desire from the heart. Desire means having. It's an instant decide or instant decree for me. Why would I hesitate what God desires? Doesn't make any sense. That's saying, I do not want to be as I am. I resist being as I am. I shall suppress and repress being as I am. No. The genuine desire is to be as you are. The genuine desire is to live the life that you genuinely desire to live. By living your style, which is the best style, everyone appears to be in harmony with you. I trust you notice this as well. People appear to be in harmony with you more so. They're living their style, which is their best style, and it may be similar to yours. It may be different than yours in appearance, but fundamentally it's all the same, as fundamentally only God alone exists, playing all roles. So there's this wonderful book called The Master Key System by Charles Haanel. I've discussed it a number of times, and I may consider bringing it up again. It was actually, when it was released back in the days, it was a correspondence series that he would mail out. Then later on, in later prints, it was compiled into a single book. In there he says, would you bring into your life more power? Get the power consciousness, more health. Get the health consciousness, more happiness. Get the happiness consciousness. Live the spirit of these things until they become yours by right, because they are yours by right. They are you. As I always say, you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. It is you, just as that infinite intelligence that knows the way is you. You get the answers from within. You know the way. Intuition. See, a person does not listen to themselves and trust themselves because of that condition I mentioned earlier. They think the answers are elsewhere, apart from now. There's nothing apart from now. Now is the moment that exists eternally. It is the eternal presence of God. So we abide in the eternal presence of God, the moment now. I am that pure awareness, still now, eternally now. And that is where all the knowledge is. And you are that. Thus, there's no separation from the knowledge that you seek. We dissolve the conditioning in mind that suggests otherwise. And what happens, naturally, what happens is the answers emerge right in front of your face. Like I also say with entrepreneurship, you are now standing on your own acres of diamonds. I learned that from Russell Conwell, from his wonderful book, Acres of Diamonds. And I learned about Acres of Diamonds through Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret, which I used to listen to over and over again in 2007. Now, a person might ask, why are you listening to Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret over and over again? Because I am that, and I don't want to forget that. I desire to always remember that. I desire to never forget that. And the illusions of forgetting that are generated by the conditions in mind that suggest you are not that. You could really think for yourself, or you could think from the premise of conditions that suggest that you don't have access to that infinite intelligence. You can if you'd like. You can do whatever you'd like. You could suggest that you lack the knowledge, and what manifests is the reflections of what the individual identifies with. Could be the seeking behaviors if they choose to identify with conditions that suggest they need to do this or that to acquire the knowledge. Maybe they want to see what it's like. Or in my case, unknowingly identified with these conditions. So I dissolve these conditions. Now, the master key system, he says, you need not acquire this power, you already have it. So you desire this power, desire points to fulfillment. Desire points to being. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. And I don't worry about how, because God alone exists and plays roles and does things in ways that I don't know. And in entrepreneurship, for example, the way I describe it is physical assets, digital assets, intangible assets, and relationships all appear to be in harmony and contribution in the areas of innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, leadership, which results in business growth. God does it. It's God's business, not mine. That's a way of saying it. I realize that. Otherwise, I form an identity around the business. And then if it doesn't go in a way that I think it should go, I might think that it's failing. Meanwhile, it's not failing. I've seen this many times. It goes in a direction where the numbers aren't increasing, or they're steady, or maybe even declining. Yet all of a sudden, this opportunity shows up. We pivot, we get involved with a new initiative, or there's a new opportunity, and the numbers go up. If I was judging by appearances, then I would forget. The light is shining upon thy ways, as it says. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. So not only does it say, thou shalt decree a thing, that is the desire of the heart. Why would you not decree it to be true? Do you deny? Do you resist being that which you already are? To me, that doesn't make any sense. But a person can do whatever they want. Job 22:28, thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. The light shall shine upon thy ways is related to Colossians 9:10. God is constantly renewing the individual in the image of God. So also it says, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. So the mind is purified to see God everywhere, to see the perfection everywhere, to see the happiness everywhere, to see the love, the bliss, the fulfillment everywhere. And what happens then is any of these layers here, if there's resistance, the resistance dissolves because you realize you're not that condition or the resistance. You allow the emotions to release. You don't identify with those behaviors anymore because they no longer feel natural to you, and everything transforms. Now, I got to ask the question in the school community about emotional release. We've been discussing this over the last handful of videos. So I said, you become aware of the emotion and you don't judge it or shame and condemn, try to analyze it, resist it, or even try to fix it. Awareness itself begins to dissolve the identifications, or awareness itself gives you peace. That is the peace of God. That pure awareness, I am that. Pure awareness, peace of God, witnessing all these things, the emotions dissolving. So thus, then we allow the emotion to be, its energy in motion, we release it. See, the individual may have formed condition. They may have said, it's a problem to experience emotions. By experiencing emotions, it means that I won't get what I want. Releasing emotions does not mean dwelling in them. It means you are letting them pass. It means you're letting them pass. So thus we let. Let is a key word. Let. Another translation of Genesis 1:3, and God said, let there be light. Let the emotions release itself, as emotions are energy in motion. So as you stop resisting, the energy naturally dissolves. And so does any kind of conditioning or beliefs that are generating resistance, stress, or force in relation to capabilities, behaviors, and environments are also released. So the snowboarding example, one benefit from practicing this over the years, and as mentioned, I learned how to snowboard and continue to refine this ability, or God does it, the capabilities, or the capability of snowboarding. One of the benefits of applying this over the years is if you fall, you get back up. You don't see it as a problem. You don't shame and condemn yourself. for falling. You don't look around and compare yourself to the other snowboarders and say, I'm not there yet. At a particular point, you end up going at the same speed, if that is what you desire. Or you end up performing whatever it is that you're performing in a way that you genuinely desire to perform. Now, what's interesting is environments also change. They appear to change. God does it. I end up living right by the mountains. I ended up buying the property that I once was staying in through an Airbnb back in 2021. It's right by the hills. I'm actually looking right at the hills right now. As mentioned, the snow on the top, due to the altitude, no snow on the bottom yet, completely fine. A sample of what's to come. I'm looking right at it as I'm speaking with you. My natural way of life. And I can assure you, this has been happening since I discovered this information. And even prior to that, I had glimpses of it. You know the way. Listen to yourself, trust yourself, and dissolve the conditioning, because prior to the conditioning is the still small voice, intuition, which gives you the knowledge, the answers to the questions. And yes, it may be reflected in books and people may say it and so forth. And I see it as not this versus that. It doesn't matter to me, or another way of saying it is, I don't worry if someone shares me the information, it's in a snowboarding video, or I get an insight from within and never watched it in a video. Completely fine, because inner and outer are experienced as one. There's only fundamentally God. I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, as I decree a thing, it is established unto me, and the light that shines upon my ways guides the way, clears up the way, reveals the way, dissolves that which is not in harmony with the vision to reveal that which is. Illusions appear to disappear, to reflect my vision, which is the desire of the heart. As the light continues to be, as the light was, the real self shining forth, revealing all these things I desired. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.